Well, we're going to close out our week with Wonderful Day in the Lord podcast by looking at chapters 48 and 49 in the ongoing saga of Israel and coming into the land of Egypt and what's happening at this point in time. So in chapter 48, Jacob is 147 years old. He's about to die. He's sick. And he calls, and when Joseph knows about that, he comes to visit, verse 1, with his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. And in the process of doing so, Jacob is going to bless these boys. And so he brings them there. But before we move on from there, look at verse 4. He says concerning God, he said, God said to me, behold, I will make you fruitful and numerous. I will make you a company of peoples. I will give you this land to your descendants after you for an everlasting possession. So we have one final reminder of the Abrahamic covenant going back to chapter 12, verses 1 to 3. This is just a miniature remembrance of that covenant, but one last time it is mentioned in the narratives of Genesis. Then we go on to the blessing of the two boys. And so as Jacob begins to bless them, he puts his right hand on the youngest son, Ephraim, and his left hand on Manasseh. Joseph doesn't like that. And so, because the oldest son should receive, under their customs, the more superior blessing. And so he challenges his father, as we go back down into the narrative, he challenges his father about that. But his father said in verse 19, he said, I know, my son, I know. He also will be a people, that is Manasseh. He'll also be great. However, his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his descendants shall become a multitude of nations. He blessed them that day, saying, and so forth concerning that. We'll let that go at this point. But Ephraim then would become the primary tribe of the northern tribes of Israel. When the divided kingdom came, the 10 tribes that broke away from Judah and Benjamin and so forth, the southern tribes, the northern tribes, the principal tribe would be Ephraim. Numerous times in the prophecies, the Old Testament prophecies, the whole nation would be identified simply as Ephraim. And so he received the superior blessing here at this point. What's really important here is going back to verse 15 and 16. Joseph, he blessed Joseph, it said, the God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has been my shepherd all my life to this day, the angel who has redeemed me from all evil, bless the lads, and so forth. What's very interesting about this is that when we turn back to Hebrews chapter 11, verse 21, and in this chapter on faith, the one act of faith identified for Jacob is this moment. Verse 21 says, by faith, Jacob, as he was dying, blessed each of the sons of Joseph and worshiped, leaning on the top of his staff. This is the crowning moment of faith, apparently, in the life of Jacob, because he knows there's a future. He knows that God is going to bring about a blessing in the life of these people. There is a future for the people of Israel. God is going to keep his promise. And that act of faith is evident in his blessing of the two boys. In chapter 49, we have blessings and promises and prophecies, we might say, on the rest of the family, the whole rest of the family. And so we have all the boys listed here. Reuben, in verse 3, is not going to become the head of the tribe or the head of the clan of Israel because, verse 4, he went up to his father's bed. So the sin he committed with Bilhah, back in chapter 35, verse 22, has come home to roost, and he pays the price. He loses the privilege of leading the people of Israel. Simeon and Levi also lose that privilege. They're the next two boys by age, because, verse 6, because of the anger they slew men. So back in chapter 34, verses 25 to 26, you remember the great slaughter they brought about in the episode of their sister Dinah. And so they're going to be cursed for their anger. So now we're down to Judah, the fourth boy in the line of Jacob. And Judah is going to be the royal tribe. It says that Judah is a lion's whelp. Verse 10, the scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet. He would be the ruling tribe of Israel. So the kings would come from Judah. David would come from Judah. Jesus Christ in the lineage of David would come from Judah. He is the ultimate king. And so from Judah would now descend these different ones. who would lead, that he would be the ultimate tribe here. He goes on to the leading tribe here. He goes on to bless all the rest of them as well. You'll notice that there's a blessing on Joseph, although there's 2 tribes coming from Joseph, both Ephraim and Manasseh, which adds up to ultimately to 13 tribes. But he blessed every one of them, and he asked them at the end to bury him back in the cave with Abraham and Isaac and the others, and they promised to do so. And so we leave this portion of the blessings with God's people, with him being, actually it says he died, he breathed his last, was gathered to his people, with the promise from Joseph and the other boys that he would go back home and be buried in the land of promise. So Jacob dies in faith, and he dies worshiping God.